see you guys in the dark.
Let me start off by saying that I don't remember every detail over the years. Many things are fuzzy, but here's what I remember from everything that has happened. This started just over 13 years ago. It took me until November of 2020 to realize how toxic this friendship was. It started when I was 17, in my GED class. I didn't have many friends at the time, and was a loner. One day while I was smoking outside of the GED class, a neckbeard that I didn't know was a neckbeard at the time came up to me wearing a Marilyn Manson t-shirt, long black hair, black beard, just walks up and starts talking to me. At this point, I was getting weird vibes off of him when he started talking to me. Shortly after talking with me, he asked to go over to his house and hang out. Somehow I felt like he was just hitting on me. I told him maybe some other time, and went on my way. As the next few days rolled around, he kept talking to me, and I found out his name was Michael. He kept asking and asking, so I decided to just shut him up, and I would go hang out with him after school one day. I went to his house, and we sat there listening to music and playing Gaia online. We made a female character and messed around with people who thought that we were actually females. After a few hours of us playing and hanging out, I ended up staying the night for some odd reason. During that night, I met an online friend that he had. I really don't remember his name. Michael explained that he was pretending to be a little abused girl named Sally, that they have been friends for years, and that he occasionally sends things through the mail for Sally. I played along like a dumbass, and tried to have some fun. After a couple of months, we just stopped talking to him, and I found out that the poor guy finally found out Sally was fake, and life went on for a little while. As the months went by, I met a guy named Jeremy, and that he had the same first and last name as me. He was a little shorter than me, blonde hair and glasses, kind of nerdy. We both had lots in common, and ended up spending the night with Michael. We stayed up and played video games while Michael slept all night. Jeremy ended up going home, and I stayed up until Michael got up so that we can go walk around town. I ended up meeting another neckbeard named Kevin. At the time, I didn't know he was a neckbeard. All three of us went around town and did that normal stupid teen stuff. We hung around, smoked cigarettes, and just enjoyed ourselves. Things seemed to be going great. I met a few other people, like Michael's adopted brother Steve. We all went on Friday nights to a bowling alley and hung out with tons of people our age. About a year into hanging out at the bowling alley, I met a girl named Whitney. We hit it off, and we started to hang out. Michael seemed to like her until she ended up cheating on me. Suddenly she was a whore, and he always hated her. Michael was calling her all sorts of names, and seemed to not care about what he was saying about her. Then Michael explained that his ex Erica did the same thing, and that everyone should just stay single like him. All women seemed to be lying, cheating whores in his eyes, and nothing I said would ever change it. I gave up, and just let things go. Everything seemed okay for a few years, until my best friend Robert had died back in 2006. At first, Michael was sympathetic, but eventually started making jokes about Robert being roadkill, and that he didn't care much, even though Robert was a good person. I was starting to get tired of how he acted. So everything that I said just rolled over his head. He claimed that he will say what's on his mind, and if anyone doesn't like it, oh the fuck well. Michael didn't care what anyone said about it. A few years later, Michael started making jokes about killing babies, and when everyone would tell him that it isn't funny, he would just make worse jokes on top of that. Nothing anyone would say could stop him from making racial jokes and dead baby jokes. I eventually just ignored him because it got worse as time went on. Fast forward to 2008, we both decided to start a band together. I was to be the lead singer, Michael was the guitarist, and we were looking for a drummer and a bassist. Everything seemed to be his way or the highway. All Michael wanted to do was sing like Mudvayne and make cheap-sounding guitar riffs, while not listening to me about doing anything better for music. Michael ended up finding a bassist that he was playing with, and insisted that we sound like cheap Mudvayne, and nothing seemed to change his mind. I gave up after a few weeks, and walked away from the project, because I felt like my voice wasn't being heard. Eventually Michael stopped trying as well, because everyone walked away from the band. He started a horror narration channel, and kept saying that I should just quit my job to be a narrator. I ignored it because at the time, YouTube wasn't paying very much, and I didn't see it going anywhere. A few years had rolled by since then, and Michael's words and phrases just kept getting worse. I started to realize no matter the woman, as long as she had a vagina, she was a worthless piece of shit to him. No matter what kind of woman came into my life, Steve's or anyone else's life, Michael hated them, and always found red flags, as he so called them. He then started to just badmouth everyone, every chance that they were not around. If it bled once a month, it wasn't worth being near. And I was getting tired of it, but for some stupid-ass reason, I stayed friends with him for so many years. Eventually, after a few friends started having issues with each other, Michael refused to have any friends mingle, even if they all got along. Mind you, we already had been hanging out on and off for years. No matter how many times I would ask, he would just make excuses on why people couldn't hang out with each other. After many years, Michael started hating feminists. No matter what he watched or saw, it was always feminist propaganda. Then he would go on about feminism and SJWs ruining everything, how they all should just be killed. Everything just got horrible with Michael. Years later, Michael had brought Steve and a couple of people over. Michael left for the store to go get some coffee. I decided to just pull out some weed and let everyone smoke real fast so that we can enjoy the night together. We all got high before Michael showed up, and were laughing and just enjoying ourselves. Once Michael got back, he found out and flipped shit about us all smoking. He ended up killing our high and made the rest of the night a living hell. We all told him that it wasn't like we smoked meth or anything, and that he needed to just calm the fuck down. He refused, and ended up leaving with everyone early because he was angry at us. Many years later, I ended up meeting Brandon, who has long black hair, a goatee, and was bisexual. Even though he said that he hated gays, and that he hated anyone who claimed they weren't male or female. Brandon was a pretty cool guy. We hung out a lot, and walked around town. I had him meet Michael. This was the worst mistake ever. Michael ended up finally getting me to start a horror narrating channel, and I started busting my ass on it. At this point in my life, I was trying to just find a woman, and any time that I was around Michael, he kept running his mouth, and every woman that I tried with would be turned off by him. Later on, I found out that he barely showered, and just put on deodorant. His mother would have to complain that he stunk, and that him wearing the same shirt for a week or more was nasty before he would even jump in the shower. I shortly realized that he was the reason that I was single most of the time that I knew him, because he would tell them off or say racist jokes that would scare them away. At this point in my life, I felt a weight on my shoulders. I was always depressed and angry at him for making crude comments and making everyone feel like that he was superior. As time went on, he always complained about his back hurting and being depressed, swore that the chiropractor was helping him, yet his back always hurt 3 days later. Michael refused to go to the doctor for his problems because his chiropractor claimed months before that he would fix him in just 3 visits. Every day he would sit at his computer chair and act like he was in so much pain that he couldn't work, and that his depression wasn't because he won't get up before 8 p.m. and do something with his life. Michael also barely drank or ate anything because he was scared that he would gain weight and not be able to use the same clothing that he wore since he was 15. Mind you, he's 31 now. When Michael did anything, he would complain for weeks that he still hasn't recovered from whatever he did. Suddenly, Brandon got him into Minecraft, and his attitude got even worse. Everything that he played had to be like Minecraft, and everyone had to be forced to watch him play it for hours if you didn't like it. His work went downhill, and I decided that I wasn't going to end up like this neckbeard. So I busted my ass on YouTube, making what I could before I decided that I had enough. I stopped talking to Michael. Me and Steve started hanging out more and decided to start a band together. After a few months, I started feeling like myself. Steve started hanging out more and more. Suddenly, I have found out that Michael has made Brandon stop hanging out with me, and that he can't trust anyone but Michael, per Michael's orders. Brandon had even told his best friend of 15 years that he couldn't trust anyone else. I found out now that despite saying friends can't hang out and mingle with each other, Brandon and Jeremy are always at his house on Tuesday nights, playing Minecraft together. Now, Michael thinks that I'm doing dope because I won't hang out with him anymore. Everything that I told him about his attitude didn't faze him, and now I'm the bad guy for everything that I have done. I will tell you that I'm glad that I no longer hang out with him, and that Michael is off in his own little world. He lost a good 13-year-old friendship because of his attitude, and I have to say that I am much happier in life, and I really hope that one day he grows up and realizes what an idiot he is. This happened when I was about 17 or 18 years old. I used to hang out at the library downtown after school with my friends. I know what you're thinking, and no, I wasn't some kind of book club nerd. My friend group was a mix of bag of emos, goths, and skaters. Other alternative kids as well. We listened to metal and metalcore, wore trip pants, Vans, DC and Slipknot, Cradle of Filth, Chelsea Grin shirts, wear eyeliner, both guys and girls. And we were basically your typical 2000 teenage goth emo group that liked to loiter around, smoke weed, smoke cigarettes, and scare normies and boomers. Some older people didn't mind us, especially the older Wiccan coven that would sometimes come to the library and would sometimes talk to us and even convince the library staff that we weren't bad kids, because some of the normies would make up lies about my group and say that we were harassing people, intimidating old people and little kids, and all kinds of other crap. To be honest, my group and I were bully brigades. We would defend nerds and little kids from the bullies. When we would see it happen, the local police was unsure if we should be considered a gang because we did all dress like it. But since we weren't into any criminal activity, except for the occasional joint that we smoked behind the library, and during this time, in 2005, it wasn't socially acceptable to smoke marijuana. Back then, if you smoked, you were labeled a crackhead and thought to be a general piece of shit. One afternoon, my friends had all gone home, and I stayed back. Later went to the bowling alley, another place that my friends group and I would hang out. We sometimes would mingle with other emo or goth groups from that city. My group and I were from a different city, and the other group was from the city that the bowling alley was in. The night had ended. I went to my friend's house to go drink and smoke. My friend decided to pass out because he was tired. Truth is, he's just a lazy asshole. So I walked home that night because I didn't want to be there and listen to my friend snore all night long. As I was walking home, this black Ford F-150 pulls up and asks me if I need a ride home. I'd hitchhiked before, so I said sure. Nothing bad has ever happened when I hitchhiked in the past. So I'm riding down the road with this guy. He starts talking about some weird stuff. First, before I get into the things that he said to me, I must describe this guy. This guy was about 6'5", 400 pounds, hairy, greasy, and had warts all over his face. The guy seemed like a nice dude at first, but when he started talking the shit that he was talking, I got a little concerned. He started propositioning me for oral sex and anal sex. This guy was in his 50s, and I was like 17 years old. I told the guy, "Sorry, man, I'm not gay." The guy just replied with, "You don't have to be gay." And then he pulled out a stack of hundreds and told me that if I gave him head, that he would give me $10,000 in cash. I was scared and repulsed by this. This guy was a pedophile, and he was talking about all that he owns in all of his businesses, that he has millions in the bank. He told me that I could live with him and be his fuck buddy, and he'd make me a manager and give me 20% stock in his company, and all this kind of crap. I explained to him that I wasn't gay and that I liked women. He replied, "If you take me up on my offer, then you could have any fucking woman that you want. I know all kinds of women, and I could hook you up in a heartbeat." I told him that if he produced these women, or at least one of them right now, that after I got to have sex with her and developed a relationship with her, I would do whatever he wanted me to. He then told me that it doesn't work like that. He then said something that really caught me off guard, and when he said this shit, I got really scared and asked him to please take me back home, that I felt sick. This disgusting pig said to me, "Do you like kids? Because if you do, I can get some kids over here, and you can do whatever you want to them. They're trained in everything." I asked him what the fuck he was talking about. He looked at me and smiled, simply said, "You know." Still confused, I replied, "Look, I don't know what you're talking about. Just explain yourself." He then just flat out said, I'm talking about getting some pussy. I couldn't believe what he was saying. I really just wanted to leave. He eventually took me home and dropped me off. Before he left, he gave me his cell phone number and told me to call him if I needed anything. Said the offer was still on the table and that I could have the world and do anything to anyone as long as he got what he wanted from me. I should also mention that in 2005 to 2006, it was not socially acceptable to be gay either. A lot of people in my group were gay or bi, but society as a whole still looked down on it, and not even the Democrats really supported gay rights. And this guy was openly gay, and openly a creepy pedophile pervert. A few years later, after the encounter with this creepy fat old bastard, I saw him on the news, and he had been arrested for all kinds of shit, including tax fraud, money laundering, child pornography, rape porn of adult women, murder videos, racketeering, drug manufacturing, and God knows what else. I seriously dodged a bullet with this dude. While the guy wasn't found to be in any of his movies, he had funded the production and distribution of it all. I am lucky that he didn't just force me to do it. He took me home and didn't give me a hard time about it. But to find out years later that he was sicker than I could have ever imagined, I was so grateful that nothing has happened to me. This guy made millions of humans suffering and ripping off the government, and the only reason that he was caught was because he tried the same thing with another guy, and the guy was going to do all of the oral and anal stuff with him. But when the fat, disgusting guy mentioned something about manufacturing CP, the new guy called the cops and told the cops what he had heard, and the fat guy was taken down. He's currently still behind bars, awaiting trial. This news never released the guy's name or anything because they didn't want to tip anyone off that they had arrested their kingpin. The police were unsure just how large the illegal criminal organization was. They suspect the guy may have had connections to the Italian mafia, but the FBI has informed the police that Italian mafia isn't into manufacturing illegal pornography, that they have stock in legal porn and other legitimate businesses, and that they're mostly hitmen for hire and money laundering. The police, being unsatisfied with the answer that was given, an investigation on unknown members of the Italian mafia was beginning. The FBI believes that they're wasting their time and is trying to get the DA to ban the police from investigating the mafia, because I think it may jeopardize their ongoing investigation. The police have interviewed me, and so has the FBI about my encounter with that fat, creepy guy, and I've explained everything to them. They asked me why I never reported it, and I told them that when he dropped me off, he pulled out a Glock, and told me that if I say anything about what I was shown today, that he'd come back and murder my entire family, and kidnap my little sister. He apparently knew everything about me, though, even though I never told him that I have a little sister. So of course, me being fucking terrified, I never said anything to law enforcement. They thankfully believed me, and just left me alone. I also found out that the reason my little sister's best friend went missing 2 years ago was because her parents had sold her to pay for their house, because they were about to be homeless, and never wanted that poor girl. Thankfully, she was never harmed, and this nice lady that goes to church with my mom adopted her, and my sister has her friend back. Fat creepy guy that I really am glad that I haven't seen after this. I hope that you got what you deserved, you disgusting son of a bitch. I really hope that the FBI finds your entire network and then shuts it down. I hope that the corrupt system doesn't just sweep your crimes under the rug because you're rich. Which they just might, because, rich people get away with everything. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.